Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Tyler Wysong. Happy 2021. I hope your new year is going great so far. So, hey, look, today is my first video of the new year, and I'm going to start it off with a bang. Today, we're going to talk about the difference of what belting is and mixed voice is. Let's go. That's probably the biggest question that I get is, what is the difference between belting and mixed voice? And is belting and mixed voice the same thing? My quick answer to you is it depends on the vocal teacher you ask. So, I mean, look, if you're studying with somebody, a lot of times you're at the mercy of their terminology. There's nothing wrong with that. Jerome Hines wrote in his book, The Four Voices of Man, that his baritone friend bragged about having 99 different vocal coaches, and he was the worst singer he ever heard. And so I think sometimes you got to just stick with a methodology or an approach, especially if you're seeing positive results from it. But hey, look, people have been asking me what I think about the difference between belting and mixing is, so I want to give you my answer. There's really two components here, because I'm not completely against belting, as long as it's done in a mixed way. So, but that's the first component, is the actual phonation. Now, some people are, some schools of thought are of the idea that you should just drive that chest mechanism, that thing, up as high as you can go, and it will just stretch out or whatever. And look, if that works for you, way to go. That's awesome. If I do that, my voice gets really tired, and and that was one of the reasons why I sought out vocal training in the first place, because that's how I used to sing when I first started. So for me, I'm about balancing registration from the bottom to the top of your range. In other words, it's going to be thicker on the bottom and thinner as you go up, and then it's kind of on a continuum from there. So one of the best ways to do that is on, semi-occluded exercises. You could do a raspberry. You could do my favorite, a puffy cheek. Love that exercise. I mean, there's a ton of them. You could do straw phonation. The idea is to train that balanced phonation, that balanced pressure and flow throughout your entire range. So there's a lot of good evidence of, how the chords are positioned in this way, how the thyroidnoid muscles, the cricothyroid muscles, all that stuff, how that stuff interacts with each other and is kind of ever changing throughout your range. So the idea of just take this big beefy sound and drive it all the way up, to me, has never worked. Aside from that point, one of the biggest differences of what a belt is versus a turned over mixed voice is your resonant shape, your acoustic strategy. Without going into too much detail, so if I say E, A, E, A, and thump the side of my throat like this, that's the first formant. You hear that pitch kind of moving around. Okay? Now, the second formant, if I say, you can hear that little melody. That's the second formant. You have these two resonances, there's more, but these are the vowel formants. And really, registration or the timbral differences from belting have a lot to do with that. So when you're belting, you're tracking the second harmonic with your first formant. Now, a real belt sound, kind of a shouty sound, really starts about on F4. That's when it starts to sound like a shout. When you're mixing, you are allowing the first formant to stay kind of where it is, and I'll explain more in a second and demonstrate as well. But you're allowing the second harmonic to rise above in pitch. Now, I've shown this on spectrograms before. I'm not going to do that in this video. You can check out some of my other videos if you want to see that, so that you know that I'm not just blowing smoke at you right now. All right, these things can be measured. Now, so essentially, if I'm ascending in pitch on a vowel shape, this is what I'm going to do with my first formant. I'm going to raise it so that I can track that second harmonic. Because if I don't, I'll slip into mix. Here's the strategy I would use for a mix. It's not going to change. I want it to stay relatively stable, if not stable, so that the second harmonic can rise above in pitch. Because look, from your first harmonic to your second harmonic, there is an octave of range. If you don't know about, the overtone series and whatnot, now you know. From the first harmonic to the second harmonic, there is an octave of range. So there's a lot of range that this can happen in, that mixed quality can happen in. Now, when this happens, you have to make your predominant boost of sound with the second resonance, this one. That second formant takes over the predominant boost. And because it happens, and because we know vowel shapes change and affect and impact the way that the chords vibrate, it feels completely different than a belt. And it feels completely different than a mixed belt, that kind of turned over feeling. And it sounds different too, because it's quite literally a different setup. Let's now come back and let's show some of these things. So if I that's the theory and that's all good and well, right? But if we can't do it, then what are we doing? But just to make it very, very clear, if I do this is the kind of phonation I don't want to do on a belt sound. So if I go really full, and I'm going to show it to you on a puffy cheek, take resonance out of it for a minute. So if I say, if I open, just doesn't sound bad or anything, but it's a lot, it feels like a lot. And I would not be able to sustain a song, nor would I want to make that sound on a song like that. Now, this is just for our brain to understand the difference. So what if I now do a falsetto? It's falsetto, okay? Now, just to understand, now what if I find something in the middle? It's going to be kind of more a balanced phonation. Yo, yeah. That's belty. I'm really resonating that second harmonic, which gives it like that open sound. Okay? Yeah! 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 So in order to do that, I really have to start opening my mouth. I do notice my tongue almost takes on like a trumpet, kind of like embouchure. It starts to curl a little, comes more further forward, and it attempts probably to keep raising that first formant, right? So that we can match the second harmonic, which is an octave above this pitch. That's where the second harmonic would be. So I'm matching that pitch to that. Okay? That's the theory behind it. Now, that's if done with a balanced phonation or kind of more of a mixed registration phonation, I feel like that's okay. For me, it's not always a sound I personally want to make, and a lot of the singers that I like don't sing that way. And so I didn't grow up wanting to make those types of noises. But I do realize that there's nothing wrong with it as long as you approach it in the right way. Here's the only thing that potentially could go wrong with that is if you're taking that so high, so high, so high, because you're having to shorten your vocal tract so much to amplify the second harmonic. I do feel like maybe we could run into some issues with constantly hiking the larynx up if we don't have a strategy to rebalance things. Okay? What if I keep this kind of more stable vocal tract strategy? So in other words, if I thump my throat, it's just not going to change, right? I'm trying to allow it to stay passive. So one of the best ways, well, there's a few, but one way to do it is to bite your pinky, not hard, just to keep the mouth shape the same. Because look, when the mouth opens, you're going to raise that resonance. If it stays closed, it's going to stay relatively more the same. You see how closed my mouth is doing that? Now, look, when I'm actually singing, like I will probably open up. I don't necessarily need to be that closed, but the thing is you can be and hit that pitch. Do you notice the difference in timbre from that sound to the belty one. There is a pretty big difference. What when a man, you know, like that's just different to the belty one. Not only does it sound different, it physically and resonantly feels very different than the belty one. Again, I have videos demonstrating this using a spectrogram, but today I just wanted to give you more of an audio demonstration of me actually doing it for you, the differences. So to sum this up, is mixing and belting the same thing? No, there are qualities that can be shared, but there are also qualities that are undeniably different. And that is the acoustic strategy. The acoustic strategy of tracking the second harmonic with your first resonance, that is belting. It sounds like yelling. It doesn't have to sound bad. People can do this in a very glorified way, a glorified yell. But mixing, or that turned over voice, the way I teach it at least, is when you allow the second harmonic to rise above the first formant and you allow the second formant, that resonance, to take over the predominant boost of sound. And to me, I think everyone should be able to learn and to distinguish the differences of the belt and that mix. But really, if you can get in that turned over mix, I feel like it makes us better at being able to do the belt, because honestly, belting or yelling is so instinctive. I think almost anyone can do it. But mixing is not. And we actually have to go against our natural instincts. And we have to learn how to do something that doesn't really feel natural at first. But once you do it and once you train it, you never look back, because it does feel better, especially for the higher notes. Okay, so hey, that's my answer. That's the difference of belting and mixing. Y'all, look, Rome wasn't built in a day, but you know what? They were laying bricks every hour. You better believe it. So if you're trying to build a better voice this year, or if you're trying to build a mixed voice this year, then you're gonna have to start adopting some new disciplines and some new strategies and develop some new habits in order to make this happen. Because for things to change for you, you have to change. 2021 ain't gonna be much different for you than 2020 if you do the same thing. If you do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result, you already know where I'm going with this. That is the definition of insanity. So if you're done driving yourself crazy and you're ready for a new result, you're ready to start getting some real results, you're gonna have to do something different. You're gonna have to make some changes, and you're gonna have to put in the work. But you can work smarter. You don't have to necessarily work harder. But I believe in both hard work and smart work. And that accumulates over time. It compounds definitely over time to where you look back 6 months from now, because 6 months from now surely will arrive, won't it? Where are you going to be 6 months from now? Are you going to be singing the way you want? I sure hope so. So, hey, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, come on, hit subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified when I release more videos just like this one. And I got a lot more coming in 2021. Let's go.